the next topic, which is ethical issues and research. Ms. Helena Bedu, Team Lead, Human and Animal Research Ethics Services, will enlighten us on some ethical issues that will need to guide your work. Ms. Helena Bedu, you are kindly invited to do your presentation.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share some few ethical issues with the students in research. My outline, okay, let me put it in there. The outline of my presentation will be, we want to know what research ethics is, why we need research ethics. Then we have an overview of the team that facilitates the work of the ethics committee in the university. We look at the mission and roles of UJ ethics committees, then continue with basic ethical principles and values of research. Then finally, I'll give them some ethical clearance processes and what we expect from students. So this picture here, summarizes everything that we'll talk about. You have research within the university, and we want it to be ethical. Then we have ethics committee, who form the bridge between the researchers and research participants. Then we have all forms of research, who have postgraduate, undergraduate, or fellows research. So this is the connection between research, the ethics committees, the participants, and the general public as a whole. What is research ethics? You can read about it on the network, but it's a conscious reflection on moral beliefs for the purposes of research. So normally people think research ethics and morality are the same, but morality is bigger. When you take an aspect of morality and discuss to suit research purposes, then we are talking about research ethics. So it involves the design and implementation of research involving human and animals. So right from the design, the conception of the idea to its implementation, and it could be human or animal. So in a nutshell, is all forms of behavior or action that have normative expectation for researchers. What researchers are supposed to do, the right thing they're supposed to do, the format, the way they have to conduct themselves. All these form research ethics. Why do we have to bother ourselves about research ethics? We all know that ethical norms promote the aims of research and avoid error. We want to do things in the proper way to be able to achieve the objectives that we set out for. It also assures that researchers are accountable to the public. If you're doing something and you know that you're accountable to someone, you are more careful. You realize that you can't take people for granted and you have to do the right thing. So once you follow ethics, we assure ourselves that you are accountable and you can be called upon to give account of how well you've conducted yourself. It also builds public trust or community to support research. When people in the community you are engaging know that you're going to do the right thing, they will support your research aims and objectives. Then apart from that, it also promotes other important moral or social responsibilities. Overview of Harry's team. There's a team at ORID who are supposed to ensure high quality ethical clearance services across the university. And these ethics committee are managed by ethics administrators who are also senior members. I'll show in a brief who they are. So for CBAS and ICOOP, we have Mr. John Anoku, who is administrator, who mans the ethics committee. And for humanities, we have Mrs. Ifya Atrams. She is currently on leave of absence, so I'm standing in for her. Then for Kolebu, the ethical protocol Ethical and Protocol Research Committee, we have Mr. Daniel Abankwa. He is the administrator. And for Noguchi, we have Mrs. Dora Owusu. So these are the administrators. So should you meet them anywhere? So as I talked earlier, we have 5 ethics committees, 4 for human and 1 for animal, and they are based at the various locations as I indicated. So we have the Noguchi one, we have the EPRC, we have the CIVAS, we have the ECH, and we have the ICO. So these are the ethics committees for the university. What are their mission or roles? You know, their fundamental mission is to protect the rights, dignity, safety, and general well-being of research participants. They admit that research is important, but should not be done to the detriment, at the expense of human beings. I'm getting some feedback somewhere. Alex, can you please mute yourself? Okay. So they know that research is very important. It's through research that we get, solutions to all the problems that we have, but it shouldn't be done at the expense of human beings. So this is the mission of the Ethics Committee. And they have the mandate to approve, suspend, or terminate your research. After they've given you approval, after they've given you the approval, when they realize that things are not going well, they can terminate.
Can you all please mute your mics? I don't know why you keep unmuting, because you are not talking.
You entered the one from Wednesday. Be careful. Check.
No, I saw.
Okay, so they have the mandate to approve. But after approval, they can terminate your study if things are not going well. Or even an approved study, they can suspend it. So they have a lot of power to make sure that things are done well. And the ancillary roles of the Ethics Committee is training and sensitization seminars and workshops. They've facilitated training of ethics committees, and also to help set up other ethics committees outside the university. And a lot of sensitization seminars have also been organized for the colleges. We've done for CIVAS, we've done for humanities. The next one in the line is College of Health Sciences. So there are a lot of sensitization seminars, all to inform the general public or the university community that there is a need to conduct ethical research in the proper way. And apart from that, they also have the role to monitor. And in monitoring, they have active monitoring, where they require you to submit a progress report, or active monitoring, where they visit your site and interact with the people you are recruiting, or how you are conducting the study, and also to make sure that you are using the approved consent form for recruiting participants. So they have a lot of role they play, and I think that their role cannot be overemphasized. They operate on basic principles of the Belmont report. There are so many international guidelines that they operate for, but this one gives broad guidelines by which they go by when they are conducting the reviews. So the first one is respect for persons. They make sure that your research, has made provision for respect for persons. And by making provision for that, it means that you treat human beings as autonomous agents, people who are capable of making their own informed decisions. You don't force anybody into research. And the evidence of it is to ask consent from the participants. So they insist that you use a consent form. If you can't use a written consent, at least there should be a verbal consent that shows that the person really agreed to be part of your research. Also, the next point is beneficence or non-maleficence. Beneficence talks about the fact that the research you are proposing to do must be of benefit to an individual or the society as a whole. And non-maleficence talked about if you can't do, if the research cannot promote any goodness, at least avoid harm. Don't do harm to any human being or animal. And the last principle is justice. By justice, we are talking about fairness. You don't intentionally target certain participants or group of people because you think you can easily have access to them. So you have to be fair in your participant selection. If a study should be conducted within all age groups, you don't intentionally isolate certain age group because of convenience, because you think you have to do so. So you have to be fair. So these three principles are very important in their operation. What are the shared values in research? These are values that as individual, if you have, you can apply even in research. So you have to be honest. By honesty, we mean convey information truthfully and honor your commitment. Whatever you've said, whatever you've put in your proposal that you would do, you have to make sure that you do them. Don't give the promises that you can't keep. Then accuracy, you have to report the findings precisely and take care to avoid errors. Efficiency, you don't have to waste resources. Some people in the lab, I know that we are talking about the basic and applied science, and you deal with how cells work, understanding how cells work, and understanding fundamental problems, finding solutions while you're having high sugars in your blood and all those things. You apply the science. So whatever you find, you have to report findings precisely and take care to avoid error. And in reporting, you have to make sure that you observe confidentiality. You don't publish people's names so that the data can be linked to individuals from whom you collected the samples. Then efficiency, use resources wisely. Then objectivity, let the facts speak and avoid improper bias. Whatever it is, say it as it is and avoid improper bias. When do you need ethical review or approval? Any research that involves human participants, once there's a human factor there, you have to know that you need ethics approval. So whether you are taking tissue or specimen data, record, surveys, questionnaire, interview guides. So normally students come, do I need ethical clearance? Any study that involves human beings, you have to know that. It doesn't matter whether you are asking one question or two. Some people say, oh, I'm just talking to a few people, just a few. You need ethical clearance. Yes, the study may be a minimal risk study, but that does not mean that you don't have to seek ethical clearance. Then, what are expectations for research? We want you to design a scientifically and ethically sound research. Ensure adequate logistics for proposed research. You seek ethical approval ahead of time. You have to seek informed consent from participants. And above all, you have to be compliant. You have to comply with the terms of approval. We have a lot of cases where people take the certification, that's the end of the story. They don't even read what it contains to know what is expected of them. You have to comply. You don't do any amendment to the approved study without notifying the ethics committee. And finally, we expect you to disseminate the information that you have. So the general requirements, yesterday I didn't talk about it because it's at the ORID website, but I know that students don't read a lot, so they will say they haven't seen it. So I brought it here. When you go to this website, you will see various forms. Depending on which study, whether you are in humanity, basic or applied science, health sciences, there are specific forms for them. So the initial submission form is A, the B, this is from the Nguchi one. B is progress report, the C is amendment form, the D is serious adverse events, then the E, final report. So you have all these forms there, and you have to download the right form, specific to what you are doing. In social science, you go to the humanities, biomedical science, you go to Nguchi or what do you call it, EPRC. Then we also demand a cover letter from supervisor or approval from school or department. We need the supervisor's approval, cover letter to tell us that the proposal has been proofread. It has been reviewed thoroughly by the supervisor. Some supervisors just append their signature and that is it. But I mean, you should know that your reputation is at stake. If the thing is not of high quality and you've appended your signature, your reputation is at stake. So we expect that, and some students are also fond of forging supervisors. That is criminal. So if you are fond of doing that, you have to stop because it's criminal and you can be prosecuted for that. Then we need your CV, the consent form, as I've talked about, assent or parental form for participants who are below 18, below the consenting age, you need an assent from the individual. From 7 to 12, you need below 70, but it's from 12 to 17. They need assent. At least they can agree or disagree. Then parental consent. So you need both for people under 18, under the consenting age. If you get an assent without parental consent, it's not valid. If you get any of them, it's not. You need both to be able to recruit such an individual into your state. Then the survey instrument, whether questionnaire or interview guide, you have to attach. Then one hard copy. Now we are taking the soft copies, so only one hard copy. But formally, you will need the number of copies based on the number of reviewers on that specific committee. So that is it. And in some instances, you may need an insurance cover for the participants. I think it doesn't apply to most students, but for clinical trials, it does. Then the details of the proposal, we need an abstract, which shouldn't be more than 250 words. We need an introduction or background, telling us a little bit background of the study that you want to undertake, the literature review methodology, then what you expect at the end of the research. You need a work plan, budget, and references. So these are all at the website, which you can have access to. What are the core scientific misconduct? Normally, people violate a lot of the ethical principles that we set out. And you know that as a researcher, your reputation is at stake. Some people have been, banned from research. There's a lot that can happen to you if you violate standard code of scholarly conduct and behave unethically. So let's be careful what we do and how we do them. Researchers and data, it's like gold. They will do anything to get the data, but you should know that somebody is watching. You may get away with it today, but tomorrow it will catch up. It will catch up with you. Then plagiarism has been talked about, making unauthorized copies of data, papers, or computer program without proper acknowledgement. Whatever you state, you have to properly acknowledge, especially if it's not your own words. You have to properly acknowledge and reference it. Then falsification and fabrication. People cook a lot of data. Some people sit in their rooms and they manufacture or cook the data. Meanwhile, they said they will go to the field or stuff like that. We have to conduct ourselves well. This all constitute misconduct. Examples could be inappropriate research methods or design, experimental or analytical, computational errors. Sometimes you're entering the data and you make some errors, so you should put in checks you should put in measures to check all these errors. When you violate human participant protocols, and people force participants into studies, even though they don't want to, then you start to coerce them, you start to induce them. Those are all violations of human participant protocols. And animals have rights. There's a committee that looks at it, and in Ghana, we think animals don't have rights, but they have rights. There's a committee specifically to safeguard their rights, dignity, and all that. So we have to take care of that. In summary, we should know that ethical clearance is very important for research. There are instances that, funders require that you get ethical clearance before they release funds on you, before they can fund any research. And that is even how come the Noguchi Ethics Committee came into being. They had a collaboration with the US government, and the requirement that we set up an ethics committee. And so that's why it was set up in 2000, before all the subsequent ones were set up. So it can make you gain access to funding, for your research. And I will say that you should plan and seek clearance ahead of time. All the committees have their schedule of meetings and submission deadline. Go to the website. If you want to collect data in March, for instance, you have to know the submission deadline. They are all stated there. So you can go there and look at it. We don't give retrospective approval. If you collected data, don't go to the ethics committee, because they give it for beginning of the study and not when you've already collected data. So seek ethical clearance before you start the research. And most importantly, adhere to the terms of approval. It's very, very critical. Then at the end of the study, make sure you submit a final report to the ethics committee. I wish you all the best in your studies, and I pray that you will imbibe some of these ethical rules and principles in your research for now and even for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Baidu, for that insightful presentation. Thank you very much.